sound check. Can you hear me? Sounding good?
Do you know what I'm
Mitch? Good. Anybody else? Anybody else? No.
Fishism? Yeah.
election by the Labour team. That election was held at 2 p.m. this afternoon. The positions outside of Cabinet, of which Labour will hold 5 places, are all positions appointed by the Labour leader. That means in total we will have an executive of 28 members. There will be 4, as I said yesterday, 4 New Zealand First Cabinet members. There will be 3 Green Party ministers outside of Cabinet, and the remaining members are made up of from the enormous talent that sits within the Labour team. I was absolutely spoilt for choice when it came to making the selection of who would make up our team. We have an enormous depth of talent, of expertise, of experience both inside this house and outside of it. I will now take the time over the weekend to work through that we've had our election process. I will take the time over the weekend to then allocate portfolios across our members. That will include working through with New Zealand First, the final allocation of portfolios for their ministers inside of Cabinet. The Greens have already had a discussion and a process that's been signed off around the allocation of members for them. I will, however, wait to announce that allocation when I release all of the portfolios together at one time. But for the sake of transparency, those positions have already gone through the Green Party SU as of last night. I'm very proud of our team. I'm proud of the executive team that we will have. It will make up 28 members in line with past executive teams, no more, no less. It will be a powerful government. It will be one that brings real experience, and I look forward to bringing that team to the House. Happy to take any questions.
Are you happy with the gender balance in Cabinet?
No.
What can you do about it?
We're going to make sure that we continue to work on bringing through more of our team. We see ourselves a goal as a Labour Party that we would bring more women into our caucus. When we set that goal, we set it at 50%, and we came very close to achieving that this election. I'm proud of that. We'll continue to make sure that we try and see that reflected in our membership as they come up through roles and responsibilities through both our caucus and through our Cabinet.
With the New Zealand First and Green members of the executive added, will you be any closer to?
No, unlikely.
Are you going to be splitting any existing roles, say Ministry of Primary Industries, and back into fisheries and forestry?
That's something that I'll be giving some consideration to. There is, of course, an extraordinary amount of interest in beefing up the amount of work that we do in the forestry portfolio. And of course, Labour has a position that we would locate the forestry service within the regions, within Rotorua. And so those are some elements of the portfolios that I need to work through.
Is that to please or place out New Zealand First at all?
No, it was our policy originally, of course, to split out forestry from where it currently sits, because our view was it was under-delivering.
Do you intend to be Minister for Children?
I intend to have a role in the children's portfolio. It would be unwise of me, however, to have a role working across areas that relate to individual SIFS cases. So I'll be working through how I can make sure that I fulfil my desire to be closely involved with my passion. One of the reasons I came into politics was balancing the need to side of that portfolio is governed appropriately.
Will that portfolio include
The Minister for Children? Yeah. Yes, it will.
Under the National Government, the Minister for Women was the Deputy Prime Minister. Will that be a senior, will that role be a senior minister in your opinion?
I have, no, there will not be a deputy, obviously, in this case, to answer that question first and foremost. I have great ambition, though, as a woman and as the Prime Minister-elect, that we will make great gains as a government in issues like equal pay, and issues like making sure that we are supporting women in the roles that they choose to take, be that in work or in carer roles. That will be at the heart of what we do. It may well not be that that role is inside Cabinet, but it will be held by someone who is passionate for the work that they will do, and I will hold it close to my heart as well.
Ms Ardern, will you be taking a ministerial role or portfolio?
Yes.
But you won't tell us what that is until next week, I presume?
I've certainly already on the campaign trail flagged my interest in having a role around children's issues. I have an existing role that I've held for some time around the arts. That's something leader of the Labour Party as well.
Have you heard back from
Sorry.
What about the security services?
Yes. I think that is a portfolio that has sat with past ministers for very good reason. I have no intention of changing that.
Will you do what Key did for the past few years and have a separate minister for the GCSB and SIS to look after the operational matters such as warrants?
That's something that I will be giving consideration to over the next few days.
Have you heard back from Mr Peters as to whether he would take up your offer of Deputy Prime Minister?
We've spoken today to work through some logistical matters, and I'll be having ongoing conversations over the weekend. I actually place no pressure on working through that agenda item. We have time.
Do you think that NB needs to be kept together, or should it be broken up and we have an economic development?
Certainly, the interest in both economic development and regional economic development in this Labour-led government is immense. We have a very strong view in particular that the regions have been neglected, and we need strong emphasis on infrastructure growth and development in the regions in particular. You'll see in the lineup of ministers and the way that we divide our portfolios a real emphasis on that area. But again, I want to spend a bit of time looking at how I can make sure that I get alignment between those portfolios and those allocations. I don't want to split things beyond what they make sense. In some areas I'll look to bring things together, but I also want to make sure we put emphasis on the areas that are of great importance to this government.
Your 100-day plan that you outlined in the campaign, will that broadly stay the same? Or
Yes, it broadly will. Yes, it will broadly stay the same. There will be some elements, very few, that will change. At this stage, I believe we may have one addition and one subtraction, but otherwise it will essentially stay the same.
Will you set the minister to move on for the climate change talk?
Oh, certainly I would absolutely hope that we're represented at the most senior level.
How about-
Labour minister or a Greens minister?
I hope we'll be represented at the most senior level, and it makes sense for us to be represented by someone who'll be working in that space going forward.
How about
Minister
transport?
for Climate Change.
How about transport? Because there was sort of a focus on urban transport versus regional transport during the campaign. Would they be split at all?
Look, I think it probably makes sense more in terms of mode necessarily versus.
So Minister for Rail coming back.
That's something again I'll be working through over the coming days. Of course, there are competing transport needs, but I'm going to be very, very cautious to make sure that I don't break up those portfolios beyond what makes sense. Having discrete delegations that are workable, something I have observed work successfully and work badly in the past, and that'll be top of mind for me.
You promised that you.
Will Labour be reversing the tax cuts that Greens did in the first motion?
We are retaining our policy on the tax cuts and our policy on the families package.
So that means Greens and New Zealand First have agreed that they will not.
It means dumping National's plans and replacing it with Labour's tax package, which is substantially more generous to lower middle income families.
You promised the Greens a referendum on legalising recreational marijuana. Would you hold that referendum mid-term, or will you wait until the 2020 election?
That's something that I'll work through with our executive collectively in terms of what makes sense in terms of timing. We'll also be seeking advice.
How will you vote on that referendum?
Yeah, look,
What's your personal...
during the campaign I've always been very open about the fact that I do not believe that people should be imprisoned for the personal use of cannabis. On the flip side, I also have concerns around young people accessing a product which can clearly do harm and damage to them. I'm seeking a way through this debate alongside New Zealand. So I'll be looking to see where the debate takes us, the view from the public, and whether or not we can find a workable solution. I think what the fact that we have a referendum being floated suggests is that what we have right now, which is a justice-based approach to cannabis in this country, isn't working. We can do better, and that's a conversation we want to have in New Zealand.
But you haven't made up your mind.
Sorry, we'll just finish with it and I'll come to you, Pete.
The net migration figures dropped a little bit today.
our policy was very much focused on getting the settings right more broadly for New Zealand. Our view was that we need to make sure that we are undertaking a labour market test that ensures we are filling genuine skills gaps, and that we're making sure that people are not being exploited, particularly through temporary work visas and through our export education sector. Dips like that do not change the fact that we need to make sure our settings are right. Paddy?
Have you not made up your mind on whether you want to legalise cannabis or not?
I have a view that what we're doing right now is not working. I don't want to see people imprisoned. I want a health-based approach. But alongside that, I also want to hear the view of New Zealanders. So I'm satisfied that the conversation that we have together will help me form a firm opinion on the issue.
It's not a binding referendum, is it?
Look, that might be a conversation we have as an executive. I think if you go to the New Zealand public on an issue like that and it's a conscience vote, then we really should place some weight on the public of New Zealand's view.
Are you worried that might become divisive?
No, I'm not. I absolutely believe we can have a mature conversation about an issue that really is vexing many, many countries. What I want to make sure, though, is that in the process, we give the ability for that conversation to happen, that we have a process that allows people to hear both sides of the debate. We'll use that process also to formulate questions, but in the process I'm hoping people are able to see the full evidence behind both sides and make a fully informed decision themselves.
There was a backlash about the cost of the flag referendum.
Indeed.
Do you think there'll be criticism of the nature of that this time around?
This is a substantial issue that New Zealand faces. There are ways to minimise costs. The flag referendum was a two-stage referendum that automatically increased the cost substantially. There are a number of other additional costs that meant that referendum costs more than a simple referendum needs to. We'll be looking to make sure this is done as efficiently and the most cost-effective way as possible. It will cost less than half of the flag referendum on that basis. Again, we'll also look at whether or not timing could be used to try and reduce the cost, but we'll make that decision as an executive.
Will it be like a simple yes or no question, or will people have options to decriminalise?
Again, I'd like to go through a process to make sure that we get the question right. That's sometimes the most significant part of getting these referendums right and making sure that they're fair.
But you're making a commitment to have that referendum in the next 3 years?
Yes.
Have you been in contact with any other world leaders in the last couple of hours?
Yeah, look, I've received a message and we'll be speaking with Theresa May later on this evening. Last night I had a conversation with Prime Minister Turnbull and we spoke about our mutual interest, the strength of our relationship and my hope to travel to Australia in the near future, which you welcome.
What are you going to raise with Theresa May?
Sorry,
What are you going to raise with Theresa May?
My understanding is that we're likely to talk about issues of mutual interest, trade, issues of security.
How did that phone call with Malcolm Turnbull go?
It's incredibly warm and friendly.
Are you sending out a phone call with Donald Trump?
No, but if a phone call is made, I would happily receive it.
When do you expect to be able to go to Australia?
Oh look, I'm hoping to do it sooner rather than later. I'm sure you'll appreciate there's a few other pressing matters in the diary that we need to get out of the way. Making sure that we're an official government is really top of mind at the moment. Once we've gone through that important process, then I'll be turning my mind to other international business. Of course, there are certain things that are already scheduled, predetermined, including APEC.
Do you expect to work with the Queen next week?
With the Queen, at the moment my focus is on dealing with her direct representative in New Zealand via the Governor-General, which is a phone call I will be making this afternoon.
So when do you expect the government to be sworn in?
In terms of the ministers, my hope is that we'll have everything lined up and ready to go via the Cabinet Office for a swearing-in ceremony on Thursday morning.
So what's your phone call for the GG this afternoon then?
Again, that's to reiterate that we have the confidence of the House in order to form a stable, durable coalition
So
government.
you don't literally get in the car and go see who, you just pick up the phone?
No, we pick up the phone.
Jacinda, where do you sit on the monarchy? Can you just clarify that?
I've been asked that question many times in the past. I've been of the view that within New Zealand's future, that a conversation and debate needs to be had around whether or not it is time in the future to move towards. I've really heavily caveated that position though. First and foremost, we need to talk about the role of the Crown with Māori. That's essential. So it would be premature to move too far before that happens. I do not see any further movement in this area under this term of government at all. It is not a priority for New Zealanders. I will not be making it a priority for New Zealanders. We have too many other pressing issues.
Just in the sort of broader context, and reflecting on Mr. Peters' comments last night about capitalism no longer being a friend of New Zealanders and Kiwis viewing capitalism as a foe, how would you describe the sort of broader themes that you expect the new government to have, the actual direction of the government?
I think the sentiment that was captured in those comments was very clear. That when you are a hands-off government, where you simply allow markets to decide the fate of your people, then that does not serve a country or its people well. And that is what I think we have seen over the last 9 years. You will see a proactive government led by Labour, one that ensures that we are investing in our regions, that we are investing in infrastructure, that we are investing directly in areas that will lead to job creation and to growth, that we want us to be a productive economy, so we will invest in skills and training, we'll invest in innovation. We will be a very proactive government.
Can you confirm that you will adhere by the principle of Cabinet collective responsibility? There will be no change to that?
We will adhere to the Cabinet manual, and of course that includes collective responsibility.
Will Mr. Mallard be the next speaker?
Oh, certainly I have high hopes for Mr. Mallard. I think he will make an excellent speaker. There's a process that needs to be gone through to assure the position of the future speaker, and I don't want to preempt the views of other members of Parliament who need to be involved in that decision. But he does have the support endorsement of the Labour caucus.
Do you speak first in the Greens?
Oh, look again, I don't want to preempt the view that they may have. They are separate individual parties who have a view as members of Business Committee on a range of issues and a range of different appointments. So they will, of course, take their own view, but certainly I hope to have the support for Trevor because he will be an excellent speaker.
Do you expect that the government will bring in a climate act and a climate commission, and will agriculture be included in the emissions trading scheme?
Yes, I do anticipate that we will be a government, as I said during the campaign, that will be absolutely focused on the challenge of climate change. That will include a Zero Carbon Act, that will include an independent climate commission, that will include making sure that we have an all gases, all sectors emissions trading scheme.
And Winston Peters has agreed to that as well?
Yeah, look, you will see some of the elements of Mr. Peters' advocacy on behalf of the regions reflected in our agreements, but I'd like to wait until those agreements are released early next week.
Was they okay with the 90% agriculture?
Again, our agreements will be released next week. I'd like to leave it till those agreements are released for people to see where that advocacy has been strongest. But we have absolutely stuck to our goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050, a Zero Carbon Act and an independent climate commission. All three parties share an absolute commitment to addressing climate change.
Is
So
that
clarify, the
ETS
ETS is staying.
right?
The ETS is staying in place.
Oh, we all agree as well the need for having a tool to reach our goals, and that includes a price on carbon.
Are you expecting pushback from farmers on that?
On the agreement, well, I'll have to wait until
Emissions trades?
I'll have to wait until the agreement comes out to see the response of those for those who would have an interest in that area. But I would like to. It would only be fair of me to reflect that there was advocacy from New Zealand First around making sure there is support for the regions, and that will be reflected strongly in our agreement with them. Unfortunately, I have a quick call that I need to go and make now, if you won't mind excusing me, but we'll be talking again soon. Thanks very much.